It's a beautiful Thursday morning right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning live on Channels Television. I'm Ladi Williams. Let's kick off now with what's in the news. See, oil prices steadied after falling for 3 days as the impact of renewed COVID curbs in China, the world's biggest crude importer, weighed, and traders await U.S. inflation data that may give direction on further interest rate increases. Brent crude futures fell about 2 cents to $92.63 a barrel, while U.S. WTI crude futures were down about 8 cents to $85.75 a barrel. We'll drill down on what's driving that market in the commodities market update. And back here, Nigeria's oil production recorded an increase in October to 1.02 million barrels per day for the first time since July this year. This was disclosed in the October crude oil production report by the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. The latest data from the upstream regulatory body shows that the country's oil output increased by 8% from 937,766 barrels per day in September. Analysts attribute the return of the Forcados pipeline, which has a 400,000 barrels per day capacity, as a major reason for the output rebound, as it's currently loading between 178 and 250,000 barrels per day of crude oil. Once again, the Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, has lauded the involvement of private securities in the fight against crude oil thefts, saying the move is yielding positive results. Mr. Kyari spoke of the threats to his life, says the cost of securing the pipelines is meager compared to what has been saved from the decision to hire private security networks. He said this in Abuja during a legislative summit on transparency and accountability in the oil sector. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
Having unbundled the petroleum industry through the Petroleum Industry Act, the House of Representatives Committee on Anti-Corruption is holding the summit to create a platform to harp on the need for transparency and accountability in the oil and gas sector.
In the absence of a buy-in by Nigerians, and of course, investors in this sector, it will be very difficult for us as a country to realize the full potentials of this industry.
The transparency that we are all looking for will be seen in all that will happen after today.
The importance of the summit for better governance in the petroleum sector is further emphasized by the invited guests.
Enthroning transparency and accountability in the petroleum industry might seem an arduous task, but we believe in the EFCC that whatever we are determined to achieve is doable.
To effectively and significantly reduce the menace of IFFs from Nigeria, we have to focus on the extractive industry, especially the oil and gas sector.
Corruption and mismanagement continue to deprive Nigerians of economic opportunities, but the oil and gas sector, at the same time, is key to Nigeria's sustainable development.
The Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited had so much to say about oil theft.
This industry is in the threshold of a change. It's a massive change, very expensive, personal cost to many people, including myself. Threats to life, and I can say this, I have several death threats to myself. We have seen connection in a 200-kilometer line. You have up to 295 connections. Illegal connection to your pipelines. We are left with no choice than to involve private security contractors. And it worked, because that collaboration at the level of the community and the private contracting complemented our government security agency. They have done great work. That you have a situation where your production came down to about 1.1 million barrels from high of 1.8 about January of last year. Because there are a lot of misconception around the field that when you come down to 1.9, the balance is stolen. No, because companies will stop injecting oil into the pipeline the moment they discover they cannot get to the terminal.
The summit is then declared open by the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the Senate President, who are both represented. The technical session of the summit will look to address the future of the NNPC and regulations in the energy sector, to deepen transparency and effective governance for Nigeria to maximize profit. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
For commodities market update now. We have Dumebi Oluwole, analyst, financial derivatives company, joining us right here in the studio for the second time this week. Dumebi, last time we met, I think the oil prices were down.
Yeah.
And they're down again.
Yes.
Today, even though I saw some, some volatility, in between. But it's back down. Yes,
it's back down, and this time around it's because of an increase in the U.S. Stockpiles for crude oil and a resurgence in COVID cases in China. So starting with the U.S. crude stockpiles, so typically there's an inverse relationship between U.S. crude stockpiles and global oil prices. So when the stockpiles are up, global oil prices fall, and that's because there's a signal to the market that, the U.S. might reduce demand for oil, because the expectation is that when there's a drawdown on the stockpiles, they would want to buy more from the global oil market to fill it back up. But when stockpiles are already up, there are signals that, or there are concerns that demand from the U.S. is going to decline. So put that side by side what's happening in China right now, that they're experiencing a resurgence in COVID-19 cases. There's a possibility that they're going to have another, a very tough lockdown measure, and demand is going to slow from China. And China is the largest crude crude oil importer globally. So put those two things together. That's what's happening that's why oil prices are somewhat, reducing right now. And according to the American Petroleum Institute, so U.S. crude stockpiles are up. They were up about 5.6 million barrels last week. So clearly, the signals are that, demand is going to decline, and that's happening, despite the fact that there are signals that, oil prices are still, oil supply it's, still tight. The markets are trying to keep oil prices at least above, $90 per barrel. So, but clearly the sentiments towards market sentiments are very, bearish due to these concerns on oil demand.
And maybe this year it's the same thing.
Yes.
Pushing the oil market.
Yes.
Either China demand or U.S. stockpiles. And I'm wondering, what else? What else is going to come next?
I mean, if imagine a scenario where the Russia-Ukraine war just stops. Abruptly, that would definitely, have a huge impact on oil, on the oil market. And what's going to happen is that, it means that now the embargo on Russia could be lifted. Could be. But this is an hypothetical scenario, right. And that means that Russia will be able to supply oil to the crude. Supply oil to the market, and that could bring down prices to about $80 to $85 per barrel. So that's like the only thing left right now to,
and there'll be no need for caps on Russian oil prices.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Right.
But I mean, even then, the damage has already been done. Commodity countries are already reeling from the impact of this war on their economy, and it's going to take a lot of time before countries can recover, especially developing countries.
Yeah, it's impacted every economy right now. But back here, we're seeing our oil output back over 1 million barrels.
Just a little over.
Just a little over.
I mean, well, it's something that we could say is good news, but when we put this contextually with what is currently happening in the country, we know that we can actually do more. When we put this production level side by side, our OPEC quota, we know that we haven't even met it. We haven't met it since the beginning of this, since the beginning of OPEC, trying to ration production and tell countries to increase their quota. I mean, Nigeria hasn't met that quota since the beginning of that trend. And right now, considering like our budget estimates, oil production is still significantly, lower than what we're estimating that we're going to produce. And the issues are, and they don't look like they're ending anytime soon. We're still discovering, pipelines of, we're still discovering, illegal pipelines. Oil theft is still at a record high. We're still having production shut-ins. So clearly, our oil production level is not what it used to be, and it's going to take some time before we can even get to where we need to get to generate as much income for the country. Nigeria right now is revenue has a very huge revenue problem. And until we're able to address issues from our major source of income, because clearly the country is still exposed to oil price shocks, the country still needs a lot more of oil money to come in so that we can at least stabilize to a certain extent. So at 1.02 million barrels per day, we could smile at it, but when we look at how much leakage is happening there, we still have a lot of work to do. And until we're able to correct that,
the trend will actually continue. This
most likely,
rising trend.
I mean, the rising trend, clearly it might not continue because we're still having issues.
Not a trend yet.
I mean, it's just a one-off, considering that what has been happening, right, since the beginning of the year. I mean, our oil production levels, it fell to as low as about just a little over 900,000 barrels per day. So clearly we still have a long way to go. And until we're able to get things right, and the issue is that oil theft, vandalism, smuggling, all of these things, it seems as though they've now been incorporated into how the oil and gas sector is going to be operating for the time being. So instead of us hearing regulators within the space coming up with solutions, telling us these are the consequences for those that are going to be caught. This is what needs to happen for this to end abruptly. Rather, we're seeing oil theft being incorporated as an issue as to why our production estimates are even being revised. It's now a thing in our fiscal framework that due to oil theft, rather than us hearing that oil theft, this is what's happening, we're losing this, but we've been able to catch 1 or 2%, and this is the consequence they're going to face. Because when it seems as though it has become the norm, we'll continue to hear more of it, and that's what we're going to remain rolling. Exactly, and we're going to continue to remain in this loop of constant bad news in the oil sector, and this will continue to, disincentivize investors coming into that would love to come into this space. So it's just a huge jab to the Nigerian economy right now.
And I was looking at one of the economic plans of one of the presidential aspirants for next year, and they are claiming that they are going to get output to about 4 million barrels, per day, and I'm wondering how possible, that is. What do they have to do?
I mean,
to make that happen.
On an analytical level, I'm not a political analyst, but when we look at these things, we know that a lot of times what is being said is not exactly what might happen, considering the realities that are here on ground. So if you hear that kind of ambitious plan from any political aspirant, the big question is, how are you going to get it done? We don't want to hear things that are going to be sweet to the ear, to the ears,
so
that are going to, attract people to vote. But the big thing now is, how are you going to get it done? Until we hear steps as to how we plan to increase Nigeria's production up to that level, because we're not even talking about 2 million barrels per day. We're talking about 4 million barrels per day from a country that's already producing under 1 million barrels per day. So how do you intend to get it done? What are your plans to stop oil theft? What are your plans to increase our refining capacity? What are your plans to stop vandalism? What are your plans to keep the oil tycoons that already exist in the country to remain? What are your plans to keep them here in the country? Because these guys first of all, they're diversifying to other stable economies. They're diversifying to other countries in Africa. They're planning to dive deep into renewable energy. What futuristic plans do you have for them to keep them here? How do you intend to partner with them to stop, the vandalism on their pipelines? Because the truth is, they bear most of the cost on all of this. So they are spending more to drill less. And even when they drill less, or even when they get a lot of oil out of the ground, when they're able to extract a lot more, less of it gets to the tanks, less of it gets to the sea, less of it gets to the market. So how do you intend to stop all of these things? So telling people things are going to be sweet to the ear to attract votes is not what we need right now.
What we need is the how.
What we need is the how. So right. What is sweet, but the how is where the detail, where the devil lies in the details.
Exactly. All right, let's look at global agricultural commodities market. Now we see wheat there. It's down $814 bushel.
Yes, and that's because there are signs that Ukraine would continue to, there are signs that Ukraine might continue to supply, wheat and other grains. Yes, even though we don't have the renewal, they're asking for a renewal, but there's still talks on that. Turkey, Russia, the UN, and Ukraine are still having talks on that. But with Russia back on board and Ukraine actually asking for an extension or a renewal of this Black Sea Grain Initiative, and it's because with Russia back on board, it's looking more like it might happen. This renewal might happen. So the markets are having some positive sentiments towards that, and that's why oil prices, rather wheat prices are going down, because if that happens, it means that more supply is going to be in the market, and prices are softening. Although there are concerns on other major suppliers like the US. The USDA released a report, stating that wheat from the U.S., the wheat production from the U.S. might, decline due to adverse weather conditions in quite a number of the producing regions. So that as well, is having some impact on the price of wheat globally right now.
No, so keep eyes on that market. But interestingly, yesterday I had a peek, at the Forex market here, and I saw that the Naira actually strengthened. It looks like it came from nowhere.
Exactly. But it didn't just come from nowhere. Right. It didn't just come from nowhere. So the official rate, right, that's the INE, the IEFX rate, it depreciated to about 446. So with that marginal depreciation in the official market, we saw that was almost as though there was some level of devaluation, but not exactly a devaluation. Just some level of it that made people feel like, okay, there's some level of transparency. But I mean, it was just a one-off. But the main issue, or the main thing that really impacted the Naira, the parallel market, was an increase in Forex supply to the official window. So between last week and this week, Forex supply to the official window as at last week was about 93 million dollars, but as at yesterday, there was an increase in it to about $200 million, and that just simply meant that more people could get Forex at the official rate of about 446, and that just moved demand towards the official towards the official rate, and that caused the appreciation in the parallel market. So that was what actually happened and caused that sharp appreciation of the Naira in the parallel market.
Going to continue, or
I mean, there are hopes that it would continue. We've seen this is just an effort of the CBN trying to defend the Naira. The flip side of it is that we're going to definitely see a massive drawdown in our external reserves, and external reserves are already down by about 12%. So this year compared to last year, external reserves are around like $37 billion right now, compared to what it was at this time last year, which was about $42 billion. So we're going to, if the CBN is going to continue this move, we might see another drawdown on our reserves, a significant decline in our reserves. But continuing this in different modes and methods, or by different magnitudes, that's the better word, might not have this much of an impact again. The CBN has to be consistent. So if we're going to do $200 million every day, or at least every week, the markets can speculate this is what was going to happen every week. So this is how much we can get, and this is how much we need to plan for to get before now, resorting to the parallel market. But in a situation where today you get under 100 million, next a few days later you see 200 million, next day you're seeing 70 million. Right. There's it's not consistent, and so the markets don't know what to expect. So most people still would want to get most of their Forex needs from the parallel market.
Quite a tough job, defending fixed rate when your reserves are not up to par. Thank you so much. That was Adumebi Oluwole, Analyst, Financial Derivatives Company. It was great having your perspective.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a moment now. Welcome back now to our next conversation. Well, Nigerian farmers say they're expecting poor harvest this year after heavier than average rains pummeled crops and brought widespread floods. Flooding is affecting most of Nigeria's states and other countries in the region, killing hundreds and displacing many, and a major risk to food security in the country. Let's talk to Dr. Dalhatu Hamza now, CEO, BD Acres, join us from our Abuja studio. Great to have you on the program.
It's a pleasure, Ladi, to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. We know water, is good, but obviously too much can be a problem, as we've seen, past a couple of weeks now. But is there a way we can turn this, to some kind of advantage?
Actually, water is an advantage, and in any way you look at it, the rainy season is over now, and we're facing the dry season. Quite a lot of countries over the world that have secured their food sustainability is because they are able to farm around the year. In Nigeria, it is very difficult to find people engaged in irrigation farming after the rainy season. Insignificant percentage of our farming land are not irrigated by farmers, so they are left to fallow. And that is one of the major reasons why today in Nigeria there is one scarcity of item or the other. When you look at other countries of the world, you can get a particular item around the year, particularly fruits, and even main food stuff like wheat and rice. Now, I will say that Nigeria is beginning to wake up in that respect, particularly in rice farming. But there is so much to be done in that we need to irrigate our lands around the year in order to actually secure our food security situation in the country.
What would you say, are other viable solutions, right now, talking about technology, that can help create, a buffer for farmers at this time?
Well, actually, the level of farmer ability is such that the core mechanization agriculture is expensive. The tools, particularly, they are capital intensive. Nigerian government have made a lot of concerted efforts through NISL, through the central bank, and other financial agencies to boost mechanization. Now, a lot of our farming community are what you may consider as subsistence farmers. I know of recent, NISL have adopted what they call a kind of farming associations and farmer groups that come together to take advantage of tools for farming. And that is actually the way forward for Nigerian farmers. Of course, the greenhouse is another thing where you can farm a huge food in a very small area using the greenhouse system.
And I've seen, some other, countries, they found ways to make use of rooftops or the top of buildings to actually grow food. And I'm wondering if we're exploring, some unusual techniques at this time.
I would want to disagree with that in the sense that Nigeria has vast land for farming. We don't need to go rooftop. Like I remember one time I went to Italy, and there was actually that kind of system of farming. But Nigeria has substantial, or more than 2/3 of Nigerian land is actually areas you can grow one particular crop or the other. So we don't need really that kind of. I think what we need basically in Nigeria is to mechanize our farming system so that we will move from subsistence farming to actually commercial farming. First, that is the step we need so that there will be sustainable food supply, both consumable food and commercial crops in Nigeria. Because our food and our crops, other crops such like cotton, groundnut, are needed all over the world today.
What about the issue of export rejection? How is that being handled right now?
Well, actually, I wouldn't say I'm a real exporter, but I'm in the export scene. Now, one of the things that is making it difficult for Nigerian farm produce to receive acceptance is the use of chemical fertilizer. The world is running away from chemical fertilizer, whereas in Nigeria, more and more industries of chemical fertilizer are being opened. We are making some effort towards that soon. We hope that the organic fertilizer industries will come to play a major role. I'm a consultant in the agricultural sector, and we're trying to convince a lot of organic fertilizer industries to come into Nigeria because the raw material for their product abounds all over the country. Animal waste, fish waste, and so on.
All right, let's look at other forms of farming now. How are livestock farmers, how are they managing at this time?
Well, actually, that is something. Livestock farming in Nigeria is seen as an area that is meant for the elites. The nomadic farmers all over the world come together and produce animals by using fodder system or mechanized poultry system or piggery or ducks. But in Nigeria, the same thing is usually a backyard thing. That is why egg supply is difficult, milk supply is difficult, because we need to come together. We need to have that cooperative system of livestock farming across the country. For example, I can tell you in Sudan today, there was a project made by some of my partners that I knew from Turkey. They set up a very large fodder system where farmers, livestock farmers come there, graze their animals, and there is a veterinary specialist that come in, inspect this thing. At the end of the day, the end is to sell. They sell this livestock, and the livestock or the cattle are slaughtered, and the meat is being exported from Sudan to many other parts of the world, like Qatar and so on. And that is what we hope to do in Nigeria soon.
Well, what kind of conversations, are stakeholders like yourself, what kind of conversations they're having with the government to, secure food in Nigeria?
Well, actually, I am, as I said, I'm a consultant. I'm more in the private sector than the government sector, to be honest with you. We're trying to bring in government to play a role, which anywhere and anything you want to do in any country, you cannot do without the government of the day. But the private sector needs to study the government policy in any one country. I must tell you that some of the policies of government in terms of developing food security are a bit stringent, most especially when you look at the loan scheme for small-scale farmers. It's a bit difficult for this. But gradually, farmers are forming unions For example, we are working with the Maize Association of Nigeria to enhance their irrigation facilities. We are working with ginger producers. We're working with many other farmer groups and some other scalable farmer groups across particularly the northern part, which is my area of operation more than the southern and eastern part, to assist in the production of various commodities of agriculture across the country.
All right, I guess we all have a part to play to make food security a reality right here in Nigeria. Thank you so much. That's Dr. Dalhatu Hamza, CEO, Biddy Acres. It was great having you on the program.
Thank you very much. I appreciate.
Thank you,
Ladi.
All right, now let's move to the markets. We see it's green. We had a green close yesterday, and Will is right here to tell us how it happened. 0.04, even though you're not wearing green today.
No, but I think I do. Oh, no touch of.
No touch, no, nothing.
I was thinking
Not one.
I thought I missed that.
Yeah.
I missed that. Yes, the market had a mild rebound yesterday, 0.04% up. We saw it still at the 43,000 level, but although at intraday yesterday we saw it pump up to 44,000, it was a huge jump at 1.44%, about over 1.4% yesterday, but the market still dropped lower.
I wonder how that reversed
That reversed so quickly. It's something about the market that we can't understand.
Right.
But we did see the equity cap is still at 23.681 trillion naira, and that's because of investors still possibly having mixed sentiments, mixed feelings about what to do in the market. And now we did see who drove the market yesterday. Dangote Cement, it was up 0.59%. We remember that on the trading day before, Dangote Cement was the one that dragged the market down, but yesterday it was able to bring the market back up. Investors took advantage of the lower prices in Dangote Cement to buy in, and that actually lifted the market yesterday. We saw though turnover was in the red, volume, value, and deals were lowered compared to what was traded on Wednesday. Now, we did see month-to-date and year-to-date now a bit of moderation in that aspect. Now, month-to-date is now at 0.8%, still in negative territory, and year-to-date is at 1.8%, all the way from the 16% levels that we saw starting the third quarter, the last quarter. Now, the total volume, as I've mentioned, declined. Now, we saw banking, consumer goods, industrial goods, insurance. Banking and industrial goods were the only gainers yesterday. Consumer goods, insurance, and oil and gas were in the red yesterday. Hopefully the markets rebound, so we see some pickup in transactions today. But we have Peter Abe, he's an equity trader with Stanbic IBTC Stockbrokers, is going to provide us more insights as to what's going on. Good morning, Peter. How are you doing today?
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Peter, the market is kind of having a lull moment. We're seeing it dragging its feet back and forth. Where is it going to go? What direction is it going to take? Are we going up? Are we going down? What's going on?
Well, the truth of it is we have the fundamentals. The companies released their Q3 numbers, which largely were good. However, the reactions to those numbers were muted. We hardly see few buying interest in those names. I think we can, boil down everything to the macro, and which everybody looks to improve, and also some other factors. Political is also there, just to be able to project into the future. So numbers are good, but the future is what the investors would like to know how it's going to turn out.
Now, speaking a little bit about Dangote Cement, what drove the market? Like on Wednesday, we saw it go down really well. What triggered that sell-off?
You mentioned during the day, Dangote Cement was lifted to 240, and that's really helped the all-share index to gain during the trading section. However, before close, it was hit lower, though it still closed on a positive region. It could have closed about 10% yesterday. So we feel the buying interest is still there in the name. Early this morning, we've started saying that, and we expect that to continue into the end of the trading. So that will possibly help the ASI at the end of the day.
So we've seen month to date still in negative territory. Year to date, however, is the surprising one. Now it's down it's at 1.8%, down from 16%, which we started the last quarter. What are the technicals showing? How lower is this year to date level going to go? How low is it going to go?
Okay, if you look at where we started from, like you mentioned, 14.77% was where we were, the ASI, the positive ASI. But if you strip out, especially the big cap names which gained during the period, I mean, the year so far to September, Airtel, Seplat, MTN, and Dangote Cement, they really helped the ASI. So if we keep seeing these names being hit down, that will really affect the ASI. But at the end of the day, if we see all these big cap names being upheld, I think we will have a positive run into the end of the year.
And so what's your outlook for today? Are we going to be bullish or bearish? Because I'm thinking I'm going to be undecided. What do you think?
I'll be on your side, because if we look at how it has traded this year, we started the week flat on Monday, and it's barely gained the last 2 days after that. Lost on Tuesday, and yesterday it's gained. So we may likely still see it just slightly. If at all it's going to gain, it's going to be a slight gain.
Thanks so much, Peter Abbey, equity trader, Stanbic IBTC stockbrokers, for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Now we see the unlisted equities market, that's the NASD market, closing negative yesterday, although it closed marginally lower, 0.02%. The index, that's what the index dropped by yesterday. We saw about 17 million naira knocked off the market cap, still in the 900 billion naira level, still not up to 1 trillion naira yet. The ASI is at 717.34 points. Now, however, there was a jump in the volume traded yesterday. We saw a jump in the volume, but value was, however, dropped by over 90%. The market saw 8 deals. We saw about 4 stocks traded. We saw Double 11, PLC, CSCS, Friesland, Campina, Wamco, UBM Properties, and UBM Properties was the only loser yesterday. So we can have that on the board. So trading, we saw it a bit of a mixed sentiment in the unlisted markets as well, Ladi. We're hoping that it's... the market is kind of like lazy, I would say.
Lazy
Lazy
market.
Yes, lazy market.
I wonder how you
at the
profit
moment.
from a lazy market.
At the moment, it's quite lazy. We need to see that push.
Yeah.
We need to see that drive to push the market up. And that drive comes with a lot of buy interest. But we see a lot of sell-offs, and that shows, like, I just want to sell. I just want to take profit.
That's
why I call it lazy.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is it's actually global at this time.
Yes.
It just looks like no market is actually safe, but there will be some respite at some point.
Definitely. Yeah. We'll hope for that. Keep our fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Thank you so much, Will. All right, that was Will there with the details for the markets. Well, after the break, we'll head to London. That's the moment. Do stay with us. All right, let's head on to London now. We have Juliana right there. I know it's hot right now. And talking about hot, it's actually the transport network system there. Great to have you, Juliana. So I see that it's the trade, the negotiations didn't go well this time. The strikes are on, and the transport system there is not looking good.
Good morning, Laddie. Nope, it's not looking good. There has been commuter chaos this morning for Londoners. Millions of Londoners are struggling to get into work because we are going through our sixth of the year, a 24-hour walkout by train workers and workers who are represented by the Rail Maritime Transport Union as well as the Unite Union. This is an ongoing dispute which we've discussed extensively on your programme regarding pay, jobs and conditions. TfL are asking anybody that you should only travel if absolutely necessary and you should stay at home. And I think that's what most people have have decided to do, because it's taking some people about 2.5 hours to get into their offices this morning. 9 out of 11 London Underground stations are closed, and the others are quite miserably disrupted. And again, you know, this is all about the winter of discontent. It was the summer of discontent. It's gone into the winter of discontent. We know that NHS nurses are going to be striking shortly. We haven't yet heard from the Transport Secretary. Grant Shapps was overseeing that portfolio. Of course, there has been a cabinet shuffle under Rishi Sunak, but it's not great for commuters. We know that we are obviously going through a cost of living crisis. People are now demanding that they're paid exactly what they deserved, and they want pay rises that are with or above the line of inflation. Earlier in the year, train workers were offered an 8.4% pay rise over 4 years. Tube bosses say that this is just not enough. So, you know, a strike does continue. But I did manage to get here so I could speak to you this morning, Laddie.
Yeah, I'm so happy you actually made it, you know, regardless. And I hope that gets resolved, you know, on time. We'll keep tracking it to see how it plays out tomorrow. But another issue now, we see Britain is in the grip of a mental health crisis that's causing, you know, workers to drop out of the labor market, and that's also fueling staff shortages.
Yeah, it's quite a devastating issue, actually, mental health, and this is something that's discussed openly in this country. I know it can be quite a taboo subject for some people to discuss what's actually happening within their mind, but we know that, of course, during the almost 2 years of lockdown, people really suffered, and this is impacting the labour market. Sky News, which is a broadcaster here, they're actually overseeing this research that's been released this morning with some assistance from Deloitte. Deloitte have actually found that, you know, the economic inactivity that this is causing businesses has risen by 25% since the pandemic, because staff are going for long-term sickness. We know that we're having major issues within the NHS. So typically, when you would pre-pandemic have been able to get in front of a doctor and get the help and the support that you need, people are not doing that. They're waiting a very long time. And also, if you couple this with lots of people suffering from long-term COVID, it is impacting businesses. We know that the labour market is quite tight at the moment. People are really struggling. Employers are struggling to get qualified staff to fill these vacancies, and it becomes even more of an issue when people are just not looking for jobs because their mind isn't right. According to the data that I looked at this morning, 9 million people in the United Kingdom are either not looking for work or are completely inactive when it comes to employment. So a serious issue, and something that should be tackled. Stress, anxiety, you know, issues because of being burnt out at work are, you know, major complications that are affecting people's health.
All right, it'll be interesting to see what that data looks like right here in Nigeria. I guess I'm going to keep my mental health. Okay, thank you so much, Juliana. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
All right, now, let's look at other markets that need, I'm sure traders in this market need some kind of mental support. Look, talking about the crypto space there. If you look at that heat map, it's all red. Massive drops we're seeing in the, is we call the crypto meltdown there. Bitcoin, BNB, Ethereum, Doge, XRP, all of them massive red, and still about the issue with the top exchanges, talking about Binance and FTX there, still weighing heavily on this market. We see it there. It's blood red in this market. Let's look at the fear grid index now to check the sentiment. Right now in this market, we see it's 22. I did say it yesterday, might be inching back to extreme fear. And who wouldn't be extremely afraid in this kind of market, seeing the kind of drop we're seeing with Bitcoin and Ethereum there? Let's look at the market cap this morning, $838 billion, down 7.50%, moving farther away from the $1 trillion mark, the psychological mark we've been used to now. $191.11 billion volume traded in the total crypto space. Bitcoin dominance 38.30%. Let's look at the price of Bitcoin there. It's a big one. It's a big drop there, $16,756. Over the weekend, this was trading at about $21,000. Traders were expecting the uptrend to continue, but you see there's hammered down 9.16% this morning following yesterday's losses. Volume traded $40.12 billion. We've seen a lot of sell pressure talking about Bitcoin. Let's look at Ethereum there, $1,181. Wondering if this $1,000 level will hold. Also down 9.28%. Volume traded same as Bitcoin. Let's bring in Amari Sachet now, eCash creator. Hello, Amari.
Hey, hello.
Yeah, Amari, I know you can see what's happening in the market. The meltdown, no crypto is safe at this point. And looking at what's actually causing it, the Binance FTX issue, what is this telling you, like players like you in this market? Can the exchanges, the centralized exchanges, can they really be trusted?
No, and this is a lesson that has to be learned again and again in the crypto space. There is a saying that says, not your keys, not your coins, meaning that if you leave your money on an exchange, they control it, you don't control yourself. And if they control her, well, then they go under with your money. And this has been happening many, many times in the crypto space. This, you know, it's a recurring issue. So I advise that people that have been there for quite some time usually give is you use an exchange to do your trading, but you don't leave your money on your exchange. Once you've done your trading, you take it out of the exchange and you control it yourself. Now, on some network like BTC, there is a bit of a problem with that because sometimes the network is clogged because it doesn't scale. And that's one of the big reason we have been so big with eCash on scalability is to make sure that people can be in control of their own key and of their own coin so that they are not exposed to this kind of stuff.
And what do you think exchanges, like other crypto exchanges, what do you think they can learn from what's happening, you know, with FTX right now?
So the thing that people need to be very cognizant about is that probably many exchanges right now are in the same state as FTX, right? FTX went under, but many exchanges are probably running fractional. And, you know, as the saying goes, when the tide goes down, then, you know, you can see who is swimming naked, right? And FTX was swimming naked. So you need to be careful about exchanges. Now, there are some exchanges that publish proof of reserve on a regular basis, one of them being Kraken, for instance. But you also have players like CoinEx who in the past have refunded their customer in full, right? So for instance, CoinEx used to be called Via BTC, and when they rebranded, they basically like closed their old company and opened a new one, and they refunded everybody in the process, thus proving that they have full reserve. So I would like strongly recommend to use exchange that publish proof of full reserve rather than, you know, exchanges like FTX.
Proof of reserve, and we're still tracking what's happening between, you know, both exchanges, but what are you seeing ahead?
Okay, so there is some news, but that came up during the night, you know, in our time zones. It seems like Binance was interested to buy FTX, you know, and bail them out, but they're starting doing an audit. They saw that the hole in the finances was, you know, north of $8 billion. And so they decided to, you know, bail out of the deal effectively because that's too big of a hole for them to fill. And as a result, it's very likely that FTX customers are not going to be made full on that one.
All right, I guess that's a deal breaker for that. Thank you so much, Maurice. We'll keep tracking to see how this matter is actually resolved. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's look at the top alts by market cap there. We see that it's massive there. BNB, that's a Binance token there. The token for the crypto exchange is actually one of the parties there trying to buy out FTX. That's a token down 11.47%. Wasn't this this bad yesterday, but I think we're seeing a lot of volatility with the BNB price this morning. XRP also down 4.84%. Cardano down 5.15%. Let's look at the top gainers, if there are any top gainers in this kind of market. Okay, yeah, we do have some top gainers there. MakerDAO up 12.70%. Lunsi, this has also had issues in this market, is up 6.51%. DAI there, DAI token there, up 0.30%, and PAXG, $1,707. Let's look at the bloodbath. The top 5 losers there. That's FTT, the token of the FTX exchange, $2.75, down a massive 40%. Again, this morning was down about 75% yesterday. So we're seeing more selling pressure with FTT, and we see Solana there also being hit hard, down 24.18%. So it's still a bloodbath in the crypto space. All right, that's it for the markets today. That's a wrap on the program. Don't forget to join us by 1:30 on Business Incorporated for more updates and developments in the world of business. Remember, you can watch this again and all our other shows on our YouTube channel. Just flip over to YouTube, search for Channels Television, flip over to videos, and you see all our productions. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye-bye.